Hi guys, welcome back to Just Talking, where I talk at uni, sometimes listen. Today we're discussing the history and sort of what's happened with the ride Trauma Towers, which was a walk-through attraction at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the northwest of England, and sort of what happened to it after closure and what went on with it before closure, as well as some of its layout. So make sure to watch till the end if you want to get a grasp of the full history of the ride, but you can skip through the layout part if you do know what went on in the ride. So if you do like this, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and let's get into it. So, this is when it opened. So, it opened in 1980, there's no specific date known for when it opened, and it was a walk-through attraction named the Haunted Hotel, and of course it did take on the similar derelict hotel structure, and it was a walk-through attraction. It was intended for families to walk through the derelict hotel and see some funny and comedic spectres. Of course, after some of the refurbishment, some of the elements did get a little less child-friendly, but it was intended for a family audience and it wasn't meant to be overly scary. And beside it was a Tagada flat ride, which is basically where riders will be sat around a sort of bowl in the centre of the ride. They won't have any seat belts on, and music will play, and sort of pneumatic pumps will sort of jolt the ride up and down, and it'll feel like you're bouncing around on it. And it's quite a fun ride, and that was situated in this area here. Of course, it wasn't in this sort of facade area before, and it had no recorded theming at the time and was actually just open air. There is some pictures of it if you would like to see them online. The main refurbishment that happened was in 1999, and it was renamed Trauma Towers in this update, and the hotel building was extended to include the Tagada flat ride. If you look here, you can actually see this building here is actually where the Tagada flat ride would be in the refurbishment. And the area which the flat ride was housed was renamed the Baronial Hall and was acting as the finale of the walk-through attraction. And in front of the building was blood red fountains, which has since been replaced by the dancing fountains, and you can still see them today, and they do regular shows, and they have those times when you get to the park as well. And there were gargoyles perched on the hotel, as well as some stone benches. You can, I believe, still see the benches that were shaped like you were sat on zombies, and here you can see the blood red fountains, but there are no current gargoyles in this picture apart from some of these statues here. The layout, this bit you can skip because it is a little bit long, but I'll try to keep it short. It started with the lobby, and in which a bellboy would invite the guests into the hotel in a lobby adorned with wanted posters which had some sort of comedic gags on them and things for people to look at while they were waiting. Taxidermy such as antlers and deer heads, and some other paintings. And here you can actually see this bellboy. This picture was provided by UK Rides. And you can see he's got quite a creepy expression, and he's kind of quite famous amidst the Blackpool Pleasure Beach community because of how creepy and weird he is, alongside the sort of Laughing Man, which is by Avalanche. There was then a garden which was overgrown with plants, and these plants would sometimes swipe at guests' ankles. There is really no footage of this event ever happening, but guests did report things like hitting the knees, and some sort of like cast members would actually work the plants on ground level to sort of brush against people's legs. There was also a lounge, which was a room which had a slanted floor, so it felt like you were walking downwards and it kind of disoriented yourself. Of course, all of these rooms were pretty dim, so you couldn't actually see where you were going, so it further added to this feeling. Then there was a corridor which included textured floors, and also a wooden plank which went across some bubbling water. Of course, it wasn't real water, well, it was, but it wasn't sort of deep water that you could actually probably fall into. It was very hard to do so. Then there was a crypt which had a tilting floor which would suddenly tilt and jolt, and a stone coffin which would sometimes have a skeleton sat in it. This was of course behind rails so it didn't tilt alongside the floor. Then there was a furnace room which had a large furnace in the corner. I believe that was actually moved into the ghost train. I'm not too sure if that's the same furnace. And it had chains hanging from the ceiling which would brush against walkers. And also a woman that was basically hogtied with a bag over her head by the furnace. And then there were stairs that went up to the second floor of the hotel, and that had a taxidermy werewolf head on it. And I suppose that does tie into the Vampire Beach event because there is a werewolf that's walking around and it looks like it's pretty beaten up. So I suppose you could say that's canon if you wanted. Then you had the bedroom where a woman is seen warning away a vampirical spectre aware of a crucifix. And then you have the games room where ghosts were seen playing pool. There was also little vampire children with light up eyes. And also a lot of the different things in here were blacklit as well, so you'd be able to see those in pretty good colour. And then you had the balcony, which had a sponge floor and it was above the lobby. I believe it was a one-way sort of window, so they could look down onto the lobby where people were probably already greeting the bellboy, and the floor would feel sort of soapy and spongy. Then you would have the dressing room, where you would see a woman looking into the dressing room mirror, and she would appear as a ghost. And then there was the library where there would be flickering lights and flying books, and gargoyles would peer out in the corner, and sometimes cast members would actually dress up as bellboys and jump out to scare the guests. Then you have the bathroom, which had overflowing facilities such as a toilet and a bath, and also a woman who had drowned in the bath. Of course, this is where, the ride does get to the point where it's not family friendly anymore as it was originally. Then you have the organ corridor, which you'll see why it's named that. There's no actual organs, apart from the different organ, which I suppose is a gag in itself. And on one side was hotel room doors, and then on the other side was the Phantom of the Opera who was playing the piano. And then finally there was a baronial dining hall where the Tagada ride was. And of course the organ corridor did slightly act as a sort of queue line for the ride. And you would have the classic announcement of, if you have back issues or you're a pregnant woman, then don't go on the ride and exit in a different way. And of course, in the Tagada dining hall, you would obviously have the main table and the chandeliers, and there was actually a gargoyle in this corner. You can't see it due to the picture. And there was a demon that would appear on the ceiling, and it would move to different places alongside flickering lights and roars, and it would then spit on the guests that were riding the ride. And of course, you would also have the sort of orchestral music that was dramatic, and the ride would jolt up and down. As you can see here, it's actually being slightly lifted up in this bit. And of course, there were dryers outside of Trauma Towers, because, water would drop on the guests and you would get quite a bit wet sometimes. And then it actually closed in the end of 2008 into what's called SBNO, or Standing But Not Operating. And it stayed there until 2018 when, in the off-season, it got demolished alongside Wild Mouse, and Wild Mouse went into Standing But Not Operating in the end of 2017. They did, when I went in the October, say that Wild Mouse had broken down and then it never reopened ever, and now it's no longer there. Some say that it was closed due to damp from the nearby dancing fountains, which is pretty believable because there was a lot of water in that ride as well because of the Tagada ride, and it's very believable that it would be subject to damp eventually. And prior to demolition, the entrance area was used for a portrait studio. I believe it was a sort of old-fashioned pictures that were meant to look a bit spooky. They did still have some, sort of photo opportunities in front of the hotel, of course, but you could get professional pictures done in there too. And some of the scenes from this ride, Walk for Attraction, were reused in the Ghost Train. And this was most recognisably the Phantom scene, which is in the final section of the ride, alongside some famous scenes from The Conjuring and some forested areas with zombies kind of banging at gates. And also some of the vampire figures are in there too. And of course in that final section it's kind of hard to see what's in there, so if you do focus on some of the back areas you can also see some other figures in there as well. And the vampire is actually quite far in the back, that was from Trauma Towers. And yeah, that's really it for the history of the ride, because there's not too much to know about it, but I really did hope that this taught you some new things about Trauma Towers. Of course it won't be returning, but if you do want your sort of horror fix, then this year they do have the Journey to Hell Freak Nights back on, which includes 3 horror mazes and a ride, and this is after park closure hours. I will of course, at the end of this video, link in the seasonal events video I did, and yeah, I'm very thankful for the support I've been getting, and I really do hope that this helped you out. If you do want to see another history video on a specific ride, then just ask me, I'll be able to find the information. And for those of you wondering where I got some of this information, I got it from a variety of staff members at the park and also Wikipedia too. And I did use a lot of my own knowledge from, being in the park for a lot of time. So yeah. If this video helped you, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, or if you enjoyed it, do that. I don't mind which of them you do, or if you do all three. And yeah, this was Just Talking. Bye bye.